and put them behind bars. Or send them back.
I feel like every time I do this show on a Friday, my garbage person has always been Ted Cruz, just because he was always doing something at the time that was trash. This time, it is my Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He is my garbage person of the week. And there he was at the RNC. He's not just the garbage person of the week, but he's like my personal garbage person. I'm not choosing him solely for the content of his speech, which, was enough on its own, but I'm choosing him because he was there at the RNC at all.
Okay, this is a person from the damage report. I don't know if I'm entitled to say her name. I'm not even sure if I'm entitled to mention the damage report, but I'm going with that. This is one of the reporters and one of the journalists, and she's got a pretty good point. She's coming straight out of Houston where all of the power outages was going on, as she's going to mention. And this time she also is pointing out how worthless my governor is, my Texas governor. And just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in while she says pretty much what we're all thinking. And here we go.
In Texas, here in Houston, Abbott was already taking heat for his trip abroad to East Asia as Hurricane Beryl ravaged parts of his state, my part of his state. Abbott's critics say he could have postponed the trip until the storm had passed, or at least cut it short once he saw the scale of the disaster. Yes, at the very, very, very least. To be fair, he did put his Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick in charge, but I'm still trying to figure out what exactly Patrick was doing while Abbott was away, because it wasn't enough, whatever it was.
Yeah, she's not the only one. This Lieutenant Governor did nothing but bitch and complain. And it's pretty standard out of my Texas administration and most Republican administrations as well. Don't get me wrong. That Eric Cummings guy over there in New York who did nothing but cry and complain. And don't get me wrong, I was on his side because of all the mass migration that was being done. All those migrants being dumped on his sidewalk. He and all the other sanctuary cities, the 5 other sanctuary cities, needed about $5 billion in order to house all of these migrants that were being bussed by my worthless governor, Greg Abbott, as well as the governor of Florida, as well as the governor of Arizona. So we come back to this lady, Yasmin, I forgot her last name. Actually, I forgot. I'm not supposed to mention anybody's names unless I have their permission. Sorry. We'll just call her Y, or Yaz. She's over here, mind boggled as to what it was that my lieutenant governor did in order to handle the response. I'm flat out saying he didn't do a damn thing.
Houston are still without power after a Category 1 hurricane blew through nearly 2 weeks ago. And we can't even handle a Category 1 storm in July. What is going to happen later on in the hurricane season? I don't even want to think about it.
She's got a point. I mean, hurricane season here in Texas is in the middle of August. It happened, and that's just a couple of weeks away, about 2-3 weeks away. So she's got a point, We're supposed to have been able to handle this hurricane. It's a Hurricane 1, not a Hurricane 5, or even a 3 or a 2. So she's got a point. How could we be caught like this, so not ready, when we were supposed to be handling it like normal? The answer is coming up. Let me get back to.
But 2 days ago, another just regular storm blew through and knocked out power for Houstonians all over again. So now we're like.
Sorry about this.
Blew through and knocked out power for Houstonians all over again. So now we're like double mad. But
which also happened. It was a light rain. It was a shower. And the company Centerpoint, that did this Band-Aid kind of job, wound up having to get everybody angry with them. And from what I heard, there was a lot of workers that are getting attacked and shot at which technically shouldn't be done to the workers. It should be done to the CEOs. But, pardon me for being politically correct.
Then, after his Asian tour, Abbott still did not come home to Texas. He went instead to Wisconsin. Despite calls for Abbott to stay back from the RNC while he works to repair his state, he decided that he was needed more in Milwaukee. Again, thousands of people in his state are still without power. Here's some reporting from Houston Public Media. It says hundreds of thousands remain without electricity more than a week afterward, and there still were about 10,000 outages as of Thursday afternoon.
This is true. Again, Centerpoint is doing this Band-Aid kind of thing. The Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, is saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and that's not helping anything. And Greg Abbott is off to the RNC convention, the Republican convention, brown-nosing Donald Trump. Just all the time that he's there.
And Abbott knows that this is a life or death situation here. He said this on Monday. He said the lack of power provided by Centerpoint continues to compromise lives here in the greater Houston, Harris County area. Great. Thank you for that statement. And also, way to pass the blame. 6 out of 13 storm-related deaths in Houston and Harris County were caused by heat exposure tied to a power outage, because right after the hurricane, what did we get? We got a heat wave. Typical.
It is typical. That's what happens. In August, when we get those rains, when we get the hurricanes coming in, it skyrockets from as little as 72 all the way up to 100 degrees, and then it stays in the upper 90s all the way up until the middle of September, heading towards October, where we start to get that bake feel as opposed to frying pan feel when it drops down into the 80s. When it reaches 100, we're in that sort of melting in midair kind of feel. We're melting while we're moving, while in motion. In the 90s, it feels like a frying pan kind of fry, and in the 80s, it feels like we're just baking. Right after what she said, right after rain comes the heat wave, and here in Texas, it's pretty darn serious.
There's a whole other thing about his wheelchair that I can't even get into right now. But if you're feeling bad for Abbott because he can't walk because he's in a wheelchair, just look up what he's done for people with disabilities since he's been in office. Spoiler alert, it was not good for people with disabilities. Adrian, do you have any thoughts?
Okay, before she moves over to the guest expert, reporter, other journalist, which is Adrian Lawrence, aka Adrian Law. Before she goes into that, I want to address that wheelchair thing also. Nobody should feel sorry about Greg Abbott being in a wheelchair. Nobody should have second thoughts into looking at him as he's some kind of enemy and thinking, oh no, well, he's in a wheelchair, he's not the enemy. That is just dumb. In this day and age where anybody can be an enemy, okay, to think that all stops like in the 1950s, that all stops because the person is disabled or physically challenged, that's just idiotic in this day and age. I don't know why this particular journalist brought it up, but since she did, she's not wrong. I have posted a post in, I can't remember if it was 2022 or 2021 because of the election, before the 2022 November election. I posted a post that says, in light of Governor Greg Abbott's corruption, one of the things that I mentioned was what she just said. He's removed budgets. He's budget cutted. He's threw out any kind of support for anybody physically challenged, from medicines all the way out to the actual wheelchairs or mobile scooters and all this good stuff. He's removed budgets from those accounts, okay? And the Health and Human Services Department, in the Family and Welfare of Family Department, also Juvenile and Family agencies, that are all of these things that are supposed to be beneficial to anybody who can't be like she or I, who are just simple, that can simply walk on 2 feet, use both hands to work. Okay? All of these different agencies that Texas has, Greg Abbott has done budget cuts on. And it doesn't just stop there. I mean, the scandals came out when everybody was wondering why none of our state penitentiaries were keeping people alive in there. And it's because he budget cutted the state penitentiaries as well. You know, how come we kept having breakouts, jailbreaks, prison breaks? How come they kept happening? You know, how come the law enforcement there is so understaffed? How come the prisoners that are staying there are dying of heat, are dying of malnutrition, are dying of eating rotten food, are dying of freezing temperatures whenever we have a freezing temperature? Okay. Why is this happening? Well, it turns out all of the budget that goes to maintaining those penitentiaries, they're budget cutted, and nobody realizes anything until something bad happens.
What people tend to forget also is that there are a lot of people who really tried to get rid of him here in Texas. More people than I think people outside of Texas realize. There is a giant push to get rid of our red state government. Our state government is almost entirely run by Republicans, and every election it becomes more and more entrenched, and they make it more and more difficult for us to vote them out of office.
That's true. There's a lot of gerrymandering going on down here, and a lot of corporations that Greg Abbott gets a lot of financial support from, that puts a lot of powerful influence onto the state of Texas. If you look up, if you scroll down my account and go down to Packers Incorporated, you'll see that's just the tip of the iceberg. The meat packing company that has a bunch of children minors, to top it all off, endangering themselves working for a living on the third shift, endangering themselves with chemicals. And of course, it's a meat packing company, which means a lot of meat has to be processed. There's a lot of sharp blades in that factory as well. So there's cuts, injuries, and again, chemical poisonings to the skin, or if not, breathing in, that takes place. And it's all being done to these child migrants that are being used for work in the third shift, unbeknownst to the entire towns, like in Indiana and Iowa. But the headquarters is here in Austin, Texas. So whatever decision they say, hey, get this stuff done, the factories outside of Texas get it done this way with illegal child labor. And everybody here, the CEOs and all them here in the headquarters here in Texas, they get to say, I don't know what they're talking about. And they go right back to photo ops with the governor, whom they've been paying this entire time to have them be stationed in and allow them to keep doing this kind of work. So yeah, she's got a point. There's a lot of corruption that goes on, and Greg Abbott is responsible for it.
Do all kinds of crazy things, Adrian. Like here in Houston, all the major cities in Texas are blue, apart from I think Fort Worth. But all the major cities are blue, and so what they do is they really target a lot of the cities, specifically Houston, which is Harris County. Harris County is the biggest county in Texas. It's a blue county. It's very diverse, and our city and county officials during the election, they ran into all kinds of issues because the state is interfering in our local elections this year, and they've been doing it ever since I think 2020. We're fighting.
That's correct. Sorry, I hit the wrong pause button. But yeah, that's correct. Like I said, they're doing gerrymandering and they're doing all these redrawing districts. They're removing voting stations. They're bringing up new ones into different counties, and they're removing certain counters like electrical, and where they all have to be hand done, for whatever reason that they claim is fair policies. But yeah, she's right. I mean, this it's all being all the negotiable and what everybody likes to say purple districts, where it's not really blue, but it's not as red as it's supposed to be, or whatever as it's meant to be, and all this other stuff. Basically, any place where there's fair elections is what those metaphors are saying. All those purple areas are being constantly under attack by people like my worthless governor, Greg Abbott, and his administration. Moving on.
Against a lot here. I do think that people are really upset with Greg Abbott, even Republicans in the state of Texas, because there's so many things that he has mismanaged, so many crises that we've seen here that he hasn't done enough for. There was a polar vortex, whatever year that was, 2021, I think, where,
Yes, it was 2021. We had 4 days of a polar vortex where everything froze and shut down our electrical. Unlike this year, where it's done by a hurricane, but it was statewide. 250 plus people died in 2021. It was a very serious freeze.
people died and froze in their homes because of the power grid. Here we're having power issues again during a heat wave in Texas summer, Texas heat. There was also the Uvalde shooting, and he just said, well, it could have been worse, right?
Yep, that is correct. He said, he feels sorry for the 19 children and the 2 teachers, but it could have been worse. He could have gone a lot more if it hadn't been for our police and quick responders, which is a total bullshit lie. It's part of my language, sorry. Which is a total BS lie. Yeah, the law enforcement is still being scrutinized over there. One person, finally, we have justice being done on only one so far, person in charge, who is going to be doing jail time. Not so much prison time, but he's going to get thrown behind bars for a little while. And the reason why I say this is because they all back each other up. Everybody in power backs each other up. So you still got some people that are hurting because of this, with very little punishment being done, and only to one cop that was in charge. That's it.
And all these things combined, people are really losing whatever faith they may have had in somebody like Greg Abbott, not just in him, but in the Republican Party. Maybe I'm being
I think she's fooling herself. She says maybe I'm
optimistic.
maybe I'm being optimistic, as she says. Yeah, she's being optimistic. There's no Republican right now that's disappointed in Greg Abbott. They might say it to you in your face. But as sure as Greg Abbott is going to be running for state governor again, every single one of those Republicans are going to back him up, like they always do. They'll always say that they're ashamed of this and disappointed in that. But when the time comes to play ball, they know which team to root for. They know which team to bat for. They know which team to pitch against. They know which team to pull the hat trick on or whatever. Okay? The fact of the matter is that, yeah, she's being a little bit too optimistic. There are no Republicans that are against Greg Abbott, just like there are no Republicans that are against Donald Trump. They all team up together because they got a lot to lose. In order to know this, and I might be wrong, but in order to know this, scroll down to 2021. Oh gosh, 2021 or 2022 of March or June. And talking about the Kennedy County. Okay, Kennedy with one N. Kennedy County, Kinney County, and Del Rio County, where they were all getting these checks from Governor Greg Abbott, who was suing Biden for border security. And they were getting all these great millions and millions of dollar checks. and you'd have somebody like a county lawyer getting $1 million. You'd have this one county in Kennedy who got $750,000 just to pick up the dead, dehydrated migrant bodies and throw them in a meat locker. They didn't even do autopsies on them, so we have to take his word for it that they died of natural causes by way of heat or by way of flooding from a storm. Not that they were shot at, not that they were beaten to death, not that they were killed by their own traffickers, nothing, because no autopsy was done. They were just thrown in a meat locker. They were scooped up, thrown in a meat locker, and they received $750,000. This was a county sheriff. Okay, another one in Del Rio, $1 million. A police department, 1.2 million. You know, and all they did was just scoop up bodies. No real law enforcement job was being done. And this is what I'm talking about. They didn't have to. This is what I'm talking about. Once Greg Abbott goes back to running for politics for governor, nobody's going to run against him. They can look and frown at him right now in front of this lady. She's a very pretty lady. I wouldn't want to put a frown on her face either. I tell her also that I'm upset with Greg Abbott and all this other crap. Just like the way they're telling her now. But come the election month, come November, they're all going to back up Greg Abbott. So yeah, she's being just a little too optimistic.
Here for over 20 years, waiting this whole time for it to at least become a little bit more purple than it has been. But I've never seen this much, just rejection of Republican.
Sorry about this.
What's going on, everyone?
Leaders as I have
Sorry about
recently,
that.
so I'm like very, very, very cautiously optimistic. But
she has every reason to be cautiously optimistic. Again, it's not going to be purple. It'll never stop being a red state. As sure as there's safety in numbers. What we can really do is try to keep voting against Greg Abbott so that way we can at least have less and less douchebags and maybe a politician that'll use the lube, so to say, because we're going to be getting it. So at least let them use the lube, and you know what it is. And in hopes of removing this current governor, this current worthless Gestapo Greg Abbott governor.
Anyway, let's get into 61,000 of you voted on your garbage people of the week. Starting in fifth place, we have J.D. Vance for attempting to hide his pro-life stance. Absolutely. Who is he fooling? He's just like all these other Republicans. In fourth place, we have all of Fox News for attacking the female Secret Service agent because, of course, they targeted her. In third place, we have Ron Johnson for pushing violent rhetoric at the RNC. Can't say that I'm surprised. Elon Musk came in second for donating to Trump's campaign. And for those of you who don't know, he had previously said that he wouldn't donate to either presidential candidate, but then the Wall Street Journal, I think it was, reported that he was actually donating $45 million a month to a pro-Trump PAC. Elon denies this, but the Journal stands by the reporting. And in first place, your garbage person for the week was Judge Eileen Cannon for dismissing the classified documents case, but we all knew that that's why she was there in the first place, right? Adrian, what do you think about those garbage people?
I think that they are quite accurate, quite on point, especially Cannon. It's wild how the news cycle continues to move so fast, and there's so much garbage that continues to come through because I forgot about Cannon. But I really hope that.
And that's another thing. You just got to keep remembering what's been going on. I personally write everything down and then try to send my opinion on this site, and I hope that it helps all of you out there. I'm going to close it off right now with these two ladies closing up the thing. It's about half of a minute, maybe less on this show, and just close it up. But yeah, those points I just had to let out and everything. You shouldn't be too intimidated by Abbott in a wheelchair. That's got nothing to do with nothing, okay? Abbott in a wheelchair and he's the one that's been doing the most harm to everybody that's physically challenged. So forget about that image of him being this cheery guy and all this stuff, just because he has to be confined to a wheelchair. That's got nothing to do with nothing. He's just this worthless douche of a governor, and he needs to be removed. Thank you for your time. Y'all take care. Y'all have a good one. Y'all stay safe out there. Keep on keeping on.
This is an opportunity for the Court of Appeals to kick her off the case. But then again, by the time that everything is also said and done, Trump may be in the office and this whole entire prosecution may be gone.
Yeah, well, you know a lot more about that than I do, so I'm going to defer to you on that one.
Yuck. Okay. That's it for now. Y'all take care. Y'all take it easy. We'll be seeing you next time. I'm going to be jumping in front of the tube next time. But for right now, something came up on my TV. I've got some spare time, so I went ahead and decided to share this with you. Y'all have a good one. Take care. This is Chris Comments, signing out.